Hey yo, Chris here, and welcome to the Delta. And welcome to the new Delta Mobile. The old Delta Mobile was just not giving me the reliability that I needed. And I went with an upgrade. Got a nice truck for the first time in my life. And it's really nice. It feels big. I feel like I'm far away. I feel like I'm going to be yelling at you guys. But that's enough of that. I think the voodoo wheel's back. At least 50% back as he banged Charles Leclerc and Ferrari. But overall, we were in Silverstone. It was amazing. I think that was the best race that I have ever witnessed as a new Formula One fan. It had everything. I feel like the results and consequences of drivers and teams directly related to drivers' performance and team strategies. And because of that, you end up with a magnificent performance from Lewis Hamilton and a really good, in my opinion, performance from Max Verstappen. I know he didn't win, and that's like bizarre. Oh, how do you have a good race then? Well, given the situation he was in and the way that he did end up driving his car and the way that Red Bull did manage his car or his strategy and tires, like, just very good. It was rewarding. Then you have teams like McLaren who made strategic errors in the pit stop, and their suffer was they didn't get to win the race. Look at Charles Leclerc with their bold intermediate decision. Charles Leclerc ends up not even finishing or getting in the points, let alone, I think he got lapped. I don't know. I think he finished unlapped as well. Like, it was just a great race. It was one of those races where, like, I looked at the results at the end of the race. I said, that was highly entertaining with tons of overtaking, battles up front, battles in the middle. You have excellent, like strategies going on with, oh, what do we do with the intermediates? Is that rain? Like, nothing like changed the course of the race though. Like, there wasn't a huge red flag or a yellow flag or a big crash or suddenly a crazy downpour that changed the conditions that brought out safety. Like, it was just good racing where teams and drivers had to adapt and overcome with the conditions that were set in front of them. And it was just great. I thoroughly enjoyed the race through and through, even though Ferrari didn't do too great, but my guy Carlos Sainz did. He always does well. He's Mr. Consistent, right? But anyway, we're here to talk about the 5 takeaways I got from the race, and we'll expand upon some of those ideas that I just discussed. But as always, I always like to talk about the midfield and back markers just because that is part of Formula One racing and they deserve their spot. Just not maybe as an in-depth discussion for the top 5. Like I said, it was probably the best real racing I've got to witness. And with that, you got Kick and Alpine. They just performed poorly. Zhao Guanyu was just slow. Didn't do well in any shape or form, and results coming in the back. Let me hear you. It comes in last to finish 18th. Then you have Alpine. See, this is the problem. I've been banging Alpine all season long. I finally give them credit. I say, okay, Alpine, you've proven me wrong. You've proven me wrong. And then what happens? One of their drivers doesn't even get out of the formation lap. And then the other driver performs so poorly, he comes in 16th. Esteban Ocon, 16th, 2 laps behind. All right, Alpine, I just put you in the power rankings. I think we're going to have to revisit that. I don't think you'll be making it back onto the power ranking list. Then you have RB wasn't too impressive. That's the big one. I mean, they still did better than Charles Leclerc, so but I think I could have done better than Charles Leclerc here in my new vehicle. It was just bad for RB, in my opinion. I think the reason it's bad for RB is because they were so promising all but 3 races ago prior to going to Spain. And then since Spain, they have been absolutely just struggling. I wouldn't say dreadful, you know? I mean, Tsunoda, he comes in 10th. He finds a point. That's really good. You know, no 1 point is better than no points. But given the first half of this season, I would be expecting Yuki to be finishing better than 10th. And Daniel Ricciardo fighting for 10th. And RB should be getting double points, in my opinion. Well, even if it's 9th, 10th place or 8th, 10th place, like that's kind of like my expectation of RB prior to Spain. And now since Spain, I'm wondering, well, where did all this performance go? Where are you gonna where are you gonna find your points? Because you now have a Haas team that is absolutely dominating. At least one driver is, right? Williams, on the other hand, too, they looked very confident and quick out there. I know Logan Sargent didn't score points. He just missed out on 11th, and Alex Albon, 9th place, so he gets 2. But, I mean, it's a Williams. I mean, and it's Logan Sargent. I'm going to take the moment here and give Logan Sargent his dues. I haven't been able to give my fellow American too many props all season, and it kind of bothers me as the American fan that the American doesn't necessarily perform well, and he is like the butt of all jokes, and you know that he's just, a driver just filling a seat until the end of the season. But this time around, he qualified well on Saturday. He raced well as on Sunday. He did his job. He didn't wreck it. He didn't bin it. He didn't do anything crazy. He didn't destroy the car. He didn't make a bad decision to lose a million places. If I remember, he actually qualified 12th, and now he finished 11th. Again, we're talking about Logan Sargent here. I'm not sitting here saying, well, this is my expectation for Sergio Perez. No, this is my expectation for Logan Sargent, and he performed, I think, the best that Logan Sargent can perform in a Formula One circuit, and I'm happy for him. Now, the question is, though, can Williams continue this momentum forward? Was this like a one-time thing where Williams was like, hey, everything just worked out for us, and we came up with a good strategy, and our drivers didn't wreck it, and we got a couple points out of the deal, and move on? Or are we going to just go back to being, 15th, 16th, Logan Sargent in 20th, that type of stuff? And then, as I mentioned earlier, Haas just doing really, really good. Like I can't believe, I kind of was writing them off. Like, they started the season off pretty impressive, right? And then they kind of like petered out. And I was sitting there wondering to myself, like, here's the Haas team we all expected. They just took advantage of the beginning of the season because other teams were trying to find their footing. But no, I mean, the last 2 races, they seem to still really want to be a competitive team in the midfield. Where did Kevin Magnussen finish 12th, which isn't ideal. And you got Nico Hülkenberg, though, finishing 6th and getting 8 very important points for a team that's fighting for midfield positioning in the constructors' standings. Nico Hülkenberg has been pretty impressive all year, in my opinion. Whether it's, taking advantage of Kevin Magnussen's boneheaded plays and moves there in Saudi Arabia, to just having good races like he did here in Silverstone and last week in Austria. Just very solid driving, and it's not a surprise to me why he will have a seat next year. I mean, he'll be racing for Kick, so probably won't have the results he's having here for Haas. But when I think about like empty seats and who should have one, Nico Hülkenberg kind of just checks the box that says, hey, I'm gonna get your points. I'm gonna do my best. I'm not a bad driver. So on. Give me an opportunity and we'll see what happens. And then Aston Martin. Is Aston Martin back? I would pump the brakes on that. I got this prediction completely wrong as well. I thought they were going to be my biggest disappointment, and they certainly weren't. Lance Stroll again finishes above Fernando Alonso. I'm not exactly sure like how that's happening, but he is. He finished ahead by what? 6-7 seconds. Pretty impressive for Lance Stroll, Again, give credit where credit's due. Lance Stroll, good job. You came in 7th. Fernando, good job. You came in 8th and got 10 points for your team. If I was Aston Martin in the state that I was in, I would take this as a huge victory and a step forward. Again, we have to now see if it's consistent. Same thing with Williams, same things with Alpine, same things with Haas's. You have to start stringing these good races together. You can't just have one good race and then next week Fernando Alonso finishes 17th and Lance Stroll DNFs. We'll see if Aston Martin makes it back in the power rankings when that video comes out there next week before the next race. They have a solid argument after a double points performance, after Alpine had such a poor performance, to make it back in to at least the last spot. But we'll see what happens. And that's basically the midfield. It was a great race all in all, and it is really hard for me to sit here and spend all this time talking about the midfield, even though I could, when there are so many other things to talk about, right? And we'll get right into it, and we'll start with number 5, and that was the Mercedes performance was great. I wouldn't say like the best. Obviously, one of the drivers DNF'd, but that's not really his fault. That's not George Russell's fault. I think if George Russell doesn't DNF, I still think Lewis Hamilton wins. But I did say I expected both Mercedes on the podium, and I actually even thought Lando would win. I wasn't expecting a win from Mercedes, but they certainly proved me wrong. I mean, it was just great. I think that's when I hear things about good drivers like doing great things, the Lewis Hamilton performance there on Sunday is that. It was just an excellent performance where he took care of his car, he took care of his tires, the strategies worked out, the double pit worked out, he gave input to the team gave him instructions, and then when it was time for Lewis Hamilton to take charge, he told his team, let me race, I'm ready to go, I know what we got, I know what's in front of me, I got this. And it was amazing to watch that, and it not just be Max Verstappen winning by 7-8 seconds where like he can make the mistake. Moving on to number 4, where Mercedes did amazing, McLaren did not. I said the biggest one was the strategy. Yes, it helps when Lewis Hamilton is controlling your car, but when you really help out your drivers by pitting them the proper way and putting the right tires on at the right times, that's the difference between winning a race and coming in 3rd and 4th place, right? So that's what you got with McLaren. They didn't double pit. They kept the drivers out too long. Instead of telling Lando Norris, no, we're putting you on mediums, he recommended the softs. Like just these little mistakes, they added up. Now, because McLaren's car is so quick, they still finished well, but nowhere near as well as they should have, in my opinion. So, honestly, I do think the McLaren car in Silverstone was good enough to win the race. But because of all those mistakes, they fell short and even let Max Verstappen overtake them. I think with Max Verstappen overtaking Lando Norris in the last stint of the race showed that while the car is probably where McLaren wants it to be, they're still a bit away from having everything figured out. Lando Norris has some learning to do. Piastri certainly has some more learning to do. And I think the team of McLaren needs to figure out their strategy woes, or at least take a look and make sure the person that's making the strategies isn't wearing a Ferrari shirt underneath. Because I think the biggest one was the double pit. When they decided to keep Oscar Piastri out for one extra lap to pit Norris instead of having a double stack, that right there determined so much of the race, because they really, really screwed over Piastri. Now, obviously, he's just driving to the rule. That's not like his fault. And I mean, maybe he could have performed better there. When he was sliding all over the place on the track, like, I thought that was excellent driving, taking care. But he was losing so much time on that extra lap that it literally was like, Piastri, you might have a chance to win, stay out. Now you have no chance to win. I think that's the difference. Like, Piastri had a legitimate chance to win. Even if he has to wait behind Lando Norris on a slow pit stop, he would have still had better time than making one full extra lap around the track. So, yeah, McLaren needs to work out some of their strategies and some of their other foibles, because if they do that, they can win a lot more races. Because that leads me then on to Ferrari, who is just absolutely spiraling out of control. A lot of people I've read are actually like defending the intermediate thing, where they were like, oh, well, you're in this position and we're going to take a gamble by putting you on the intermediates early. And it's like, buddy, like, you got millions of dollars worth of equipment in front of you. You mean to tell me you don't have one accurate radar detection? Like you're not trying to reinvent the wheel over here. Like, just like if the rain is not coming fast enough, like ever. You didn't do it to Carlos. Why'd you do it to Charles? Like, what? Like, your car is not performing to the level that you're expecting it to. You have no wiggle room to be trying to make these 1,000 IQ decisions. Like, oh, our car isn't doing well, but guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna pit Charles Leclerc early. Oh, we're gonna put hards on him in Canada. Oh, no, stop. Just follow course. Because if you follow the course, you can at least be, like, competitive. All right? It's one thing not to get out of Q2. Shit happens. All right? But then to, like, put your driver, who is, like, on the verge of being in the points, to, like, go with such a radical strategy, I just disagree with. Like I said, I read a lot of things there and saying, like, well, if it did work out, the points would have been massive and it would have been paying great dividends. And it's like, again, your car is not performing well. You can't just do those kinds of things. You have to, when your car is mid or performing mid, you have to just play it safe. This is one busy road, ain't it? But yeah, Carlos Sainz, I think he did the best he could do. Again, where I know the car isn't performing well is that, like, he's not able to chase down anybody, even if he's in 6th and 5th position. You know, like, he's sitting there in front of the Haas. Yeah, I get it that like the last lap, you know, closes that gap between him and the Haas because he's pit for the fastest lap. Cool, fun little strategy there. But, like, he's unable to chase down a McLaren or Red Bull or Mercedes. Like, at one point I thought he had an opportunity to, but it just, the performance wasn't there. Whether it was the tires or the car or the combination of the two, like, the car isn't performing well. And that's what goes back to the whole Charles Leclerc thing. The car isn't performing well, so they stuck course with Carlos Sainz. The strategy for Carlos Sainz was keep driving, keep pushing, keep the pace, take care of your tires. We're going to pit you with Max. Just stay behind that. Bare minimum. We don't expect you to pass Max. We don't expect you to battle Max. In fact, you might end up losing a few spots to the McLarens or whatever. But we're staying course, because if we do something radical like we're going to do with Charles Leclerc, the difference will be is instead of 11 points in 5th place, you're going to come in 9th place. Stay the course. Same with Charles. I do not subscribe to the Charles Leclerc strategy, and I don't care how much it did or didn't make a difference. Don't do it. You're not a team that can do that. Pit when everyone else is pitting and move on. That's enough about Ferrari. Let's move on to the third thing to take away from the British Grand Prix. Red Bull, at this point, aka Max Verstappen, proves why he is the best. Now, I'm not trying to take any thunder away from Lewis Hamilton, so please don't get upset. But this was one of the first races that I was kind of rooting for Max. As you well know, I'm not a big Max Verstappen fan. But again, I give credit where credit's due. And based off of the mistakes that McLaren was making and the right decisions Red Bull was making with Max Verstappen, like going to the hards when we were all scratching our heads, I kind of wanted Max to at least pass the McLarens. Like, there was a part of me that was like, you know, if Max catches up to Lewis Hamilton, that would be pretty amazing. But I don't think Max deserved first place. He had horrible pace there in qualifying. on Saturday, and he had a horrible first stint of the race too. I mean, he wasn't exactly, blitz lightning out there. So when he finished in second, I was like, that is kind of satisfying, because he did all the right things he was supposed to do as the, operator of the car, and his team did everything that they could to put him in the best position as the operator of the car. And what you got was, you got to pass Piastri, you got to pass Lando Norris, and you got to reap the fruits of that labor. And for the first time ever, I saw Max Verstappen and go, good job, bud. I'm happy that you got this result. Now, obviously, if you're talking about like teams and constructor standings and all that other stuff, like, yeah, that's frustrating. But it was nice. Again, I don't have a problem with greatness when greatness has to still work for the results that they're getting. And I think that's what it was. This race, he had to work extremely hard to get just second place. And when we're also used to him winning by a country mile, him earning a second place spot is a lot more palatable. And if he has to earn first place, if he has to earn his wins like this, I'm fine with that. That's what you get to do when you're the greatest. You win a lot. You're just gonna have to get used to that. But just make them work for it. Make Red Bull work for it. And that's what they had to do there in Silverstone. And because of that, I'm happy for Max. I'm happy for Red Bull for getting to where they're at. And that also then shows McLaren, like, look, that's what good teams do. That's what good race car drivers do. That's how you get points. That's how you become a constructor's leader. That's how you become a driver champion. There's things to note. And then the number one thing, again, we don't go in any particular order. It's just me spitballing ideas. Perez's seat is back in question. Much like Leclerc, he had a horrible weekend. There, he way more horrible, actually. I mean, he spins out and gets beached there in Q1 of qualifying, and his race is basically over by that point. We know enough now about the Red Bull car that it isn't the rocket ship it was years past, where you could make a mistake like that, and Perez could have easily fought back into 9th, 8th, even 7th spot, right? Wow, look at Perez. He went from 18th to 7th. Cool, well, he's in a Red Bull. Well, guess what? A lot of the other cars are pretty damn quick. And again, mistakes that are made this weekend warranted the results that happened. So, Sergio Perez makes a mistake in qualifying. He's in the back of the pack. And then continues to have a mediocre to subpar race throughout. Meanwhile, his teammate qualifies well, not great, but qualifies well, and has a good strategy, and manages his car, and does all the right things, and he gets a podium. We're two opposite spectrum, and it has already been stated that just because the contract has been extended, sounds like it is still available. So you have Daniel Ricciardo out there probably licking his chops, even though he's probably going to have to do better than what he's doing at RB. But nonetheless, Carlos Sainz, he's sitting there going, oh, look, I'm driving a freaking Ferrari. I got a Ferrari that's in my hands, and I'm maintaining it. I'm doing better than the number one driver that's staying on the team. I bet you I can get you a bunch of 5th and 4th places there, Red Bull. Sergio Perez is in hot water. Because one of the other things that's come across is like, look, they've now like gone to 2 different like strategies to motivate him. They said every driver has a bad day. So every driver has a bad couple races. Give him some space, give him some time, he'll work it out. Then they went the route with, look, buddy, we're gonna just put it out there that your seat isn't safe, and then still doesn't perform. Yeah, Perez is in trouble. I see a path now that's greater than 50% where he's not on Red Bull next year. And the only way to save that seat is if he starts getting valuable points for Red Bull, because McLaren is catching up to Ferrari. I would be willing to put down a decent amount of money that McLaren takes second place in the constructor standings after next race. And again, I mean, if Piastri and Lando Norris continue to finish, 3-4, 2-3, 1-2, 1-3, there might be enough math in there where McLaren can win the constructors, and that would be solely based on the fact that Sergio Perez is just not getting you points. Because, like I said, he's not even getting 10th, 9th, 7th. He's not even getting your bare minimum points. He's getting you goose eggs back in the back of the field. But yeah, that was a long-winded video. Hopefully I can edit a bunch of it out. Sorry about the traffic behind me. Hopefully that wasn't too annoying. Getting back into a new bridge project. But yep, that was my lunch break video. Hopefully you enjoyed Silverstone as much as I did. We now take a week off. I am actually very, very happy about that because, like I said, we're starting a new project up, and the triple header was exhausting, to say the least, to get these videos out. Still enjoyed it, but I also need a break. I do want to put out a couple videos, or until then at least. But anyway, let me know in the comments, like, if you want me to discuss anything in particular for future videos for this off week. But until then, take care, stay safe, and have fun out there. Bye, everybody.